On today's episode of Tartan Talk with USA Kilts, we sit down with the one and only Krash, the founder of Utilikilt. All right, Krash, thank you for joining us. For those that don't know who you are, give me the 30-second background of who is Krash.
I'm Steven Villegas. My nickname is Krash. I created Utilikilts in 2000, and it was the pioneering company for utility kilts as we know them today. And done a lot of events. Don't do them anymore. Pretty much just run a business from our workshop in Seattle, Washington. I've been doing it for 23 years.
Awesome. So take me back to the beginning. So I'm going to ask some boring questions and some insightful questions. Take me back to the beginning and kind of go through the process with me a little bit. What was your inspiration to start it? And what were the first, what was the origin story of it?
Of the Utilikilts, the utility, the garment. The main impetus was I wanted something other than pants to wear, and I thought a kilt would be great, but I wasn't as Scottish as you would imagine Scottish people would be, who actually wear a tartan. Didn't have my own tartan. Didn't want to really be associated with anybody else. I wanted to just stand out a little bit, but I wasn't going to wear a woolen tartan kilt in the middle of summer or working on my motorcycles or doing whatever it is that I do. So one day I just I chopped up a pair of pants and turned it into a skirt kilt unit and started wearing it around the house. And then one day I left the house. I wasn't thinking about it, and I ended up in a little 7-Eleven store, and I was buying beer, of course. And I was working on my motorcycles that day, and I got a lot of feedback and attention in the 7-Eleven. It was pretty incredible. There was people talking to me that would never speak to me before. So I thought that was a real neat icebreaker, and I got a lot of compliments from women. And of course, I was chasing women very seriously at the time. And so I thought, wow, what a great idea, and started wearing it out more often.
Yeah, I had a similar revelation of like, wow, this is pretty cool. A lot of people want to talk to me that wouldn't otherwise talk to me. It's a very weird, surreal, eye-opening kind of experience.
It's kind of a freak flag, if you will.
Exactly. So what were the first days of starting a company? How did you go from just, hey, I just want to wear this out, it's fun, it's something to do, it gets attention, to this could actually be a thing I could sell, and take me from that through to like, how did you actually start the business and start getting moving?
Well, after I'd been wearing it for about a year, there was so much interest in it. And I heard myself saying to myself, I said, whoever would start this type of business could actually pull it off and make a living from it. So when I had that realization, I changed my whole life schedule and got all serious about making this happen. So I rented an office and I started cleaning up my credit, and I paid off all my tickets. I paid off all my warrants or dealt with them, whatever they were, whatever states they were in. And then I just busted my ass for a while. And then I got hurt on the job, and that was the perfect opportunity to give it 100%. After I wasn't able to be at the workplace, because there's that, what would you call it? That
gray area,
that leash of, I'm going to get out on my own when I'm stable enough, when I have enough money. But honestly, the day never comes when you have enough money. It's like, are you ready for children? No, but you do it anyways. Who could be ready for their first children? I mean, you don't know what you're in for. So
just out of curiosity, what were you doing before? Like, what was that gray area, that transition? What was the job you were doing before starting this full time?
I was I got into industrial painting right quick. I knew I could do it. And I just went down to the union hall and I told them I was a journeyman painter. And they're like, great, we need journeyman painters. And I said, we're just hiring like crazy. And I said, send me on your best jobs with the most money. So I passed up their first 5 or 6 offers. They're like, please work this job and please work. So they finally sent me out to a submarine hangar out there at Bangor, Washington. So it was high clearance security and all that. And I passed it, and I passed a drug test. So that was a lot of money. And then I worked it for a good long time.
Nice. Now it's that I 100% relate from going from the security of the job and having a job and having a side hustle to full-time side hustle, and the fear that little, what is potentially a little leap, potentially a huge leap for some people, what that brings is it's all on you now. You're out on your own.
Yeah, which is the crappiest part about being self-employed. And when you complain, you're only complaining to yourself about shit you need to do and get around to and correct yourself. So there's no whining. I mean, it's a growing step to do it and step out on your own.
Yeah, I loved it from an aspect, and I'm curious about your interaction or your thoughts on it. I loved it from an aspect of I didn't have to worry. The good part is you don't have to worry about what anyone else is telling you need to do, how you need to prioritize your day, where you're going to get, source this thing from, that thing from. You can't do this, you can't do that. It's like, nope, it's all on me. But the scary part is it's all on me, and I have to be the one to push myself to do it. Did you find that motivation difficult, or did you thrive in it?
The situation was secondary to the customers. Now, when I started the company, that you don't start a company without customers, and so I had already set up a few sales by the time when I was jumping from into the business. And then when I met the customers, I became full customer person because they were the most interesting people I'd ever met. And it was like a real door opener for it. Just everybody had the opportunity to come and speak with me now at this point, where before I might have looked a little unapproachable. And so I just focused on customers and guessing what they want, knowing them very well, and then the rest of it was just secondary. It was just natural. It's like if you have a kid, you got to be home at a certain hour, and it's not a sacrifice. You're not going to be hanging out with your friends. It's not a sacrifice. It's what you're doing. It really wasn't. I wasn't paying attention to it. So I needed employees to continue being with the customers. And as the popularity of the product grew, I needed to keep up with the demand, and I needed to stay in touch with them. So I stayed the face of the company, but I always understood how to work that back end, because you have to, train your first employees. You got to do QuickBooks. You got to train them to do cutting or working with CAD program or Gerber or other things that clothing manufacturers do.
So where did you find your first customers? I know you used to do a farmer's market or something in Seattle.
The first customer I had, I was at the Crocodile. It was a nightclub bar in downtown Seattle. And I was in the line, and the door guy was letting us in, checking IDs. And he says, "Where'd you get that?" "I'm getting one." And I was like, "Great, I'll make you one." I sized him up right there and said, "Meet me down at," no, I didn't have a storefront open. So I said, "Meet me at this market where I knew I could get in." And he said, "All right, I'll meet you there on Saturday." And so I went to work, and I made the first Utilikilt, and I sold it to that guy on a Saturday, on a Sunday, technically, April 2nd. 2000. So that was my first day at the market. And then the market it was a storefront when you don't have an actual storefront. So every weekend I'd be there. And then it was about 3 or 4 months later where I had my own storefront and office operating.
Nice. And were you always, you made stuff out of the storefront immediately, or were you still making stuff out of your house? Or?
Well, when I started the company, I was homeless.
Really?
Yeah.
I was not aware of that. That's awesome. Yeah, it's awesome that you've, transitioned from being homeless into something, successful, and that it was, the vehicle to do that for you.
Well, I wasn't as homeless, I didn't feel victimized at all. I was saving my money, and I was staying close to work. And I was so committed that I was just going to sleep in the car, but at 4 a.m. or 5 a.m., or whether I woke up in there making coffee, going to work, and when I went to bed, out to the car. So, it was just a compromise. I wasn't allowed to live at the workplace. And so I didn't want to lose my lease. And that's how I swung it.
Right on. Wait. Again, back to the small business thing. You got to do what you got to do to make it go.
It might help for you to know, though, that the car that I had at the time that I was sleeping in was my double deck bus.
Fair. At least it's a bit roomy. Yeah.
Yeah, it was kind of roomy. It was not plush or anything, but it was pretty jumpy.
I thought you were going to say you had a hearse or something, and you slept like this in the back of the hearse.
Pretty cool.
So I know that you are extremely passionate about your customers. Tell me about like some of your most memorable customers, or why, if you can articulate why you're so passionate about your customers.
I don't feel like I've ever fit into the job place, to the job markets. I've always been on my own path, and I've always danced to my own tune. And so I've always felt like a round peg amongst squares and triangles. And this was the first time where I was meeting people at high flow, but they were all coming to me. I wasn't going out to them. Me and the company have never gone out to hunt customers. We fish for customers, and that's a big difference. You cast a line out there, you sit there, you crack open a beer and wait for the line to tug. And so I did that, and then there was people coming in, and it was very fulfilling for my life, and it expanded so many avenues. It really enriched my experience of being here in the United States, in this part of the world at this time. I guess I appreciated how conventional people feel in society, because I've never been a conventional person, and I've always been on the edge, on the fringe.
Right on. So, out of curiosity, where did the name Krash come from? What's the origin of that?
You've been dying to get to that one, haven't you?
I knew you. I have another story I want to go into in a minute, but but when I met you in 2004, it was I knew you as Steven, not as Krash. So it's one of those where it's always kind of been in the back of my brain, like, I wonder how that came about, because I keep thinking of Crash Bandicoot in the video game.
Great. It was in 2004, actually. We had been going to the second year in business. I actually had enough to get the company to Burning Man. So I bought tickets enough for everyone who wanted to go, which was about a dozen people. And so we headed out there, and that was 2001, and great experience. And then we were like, holy shit, this is where all the Utilikilts are going. It's Burning Man. Wow, that's great. That's great. It was really just shocking. And then we just kept going every year. I kept buying tickets for the entire company, but less and less, because you don't want to take your company to Burning Man, because generally they won't come back for a while in a couple of senses. So in 2004, I was there, and I hadn't been able to relax. I was just so wound up and working so hard. I couldn't separate myself from work. 2 weeks was not enough time to just, let go and acclimate to another mindset. But in 2004, I left early. I didn't take a bunch of responsibility. I just took the hot rod Lincoln that I built a couple summers before, and I went down there, showed up on the playa, and just said, what's going to happen to me? I didn't bring the company or anybody. And then, sure as shit, there was a Utilikilts wedding. There was a wedding on the playa, and they were wearing Utilikilts, and the groom was wearing Utilikilts, and I kind of knew about it because we built the kilts. And I remember, by then it was like we were having thousands of sales a month. And so it was really hard to keep up to customers, but I just ended up there, and I was like, oh my God. And then somebody walked up to me and they said, you're the Utilikilts guy, because I got a tattoo on my arm. And I was like, yeah. And so they're like, you going to crash with us or what? And then, so I went to their camp, because I didn't have a camp. I went to their camp and they're like, yeah, hang out with us for the Burning Man. This is great. 2004. Like, you're going to need to apply a name. So I'm crashing your camp. It was Happy Camp. And so, all right, Crash, Crash Happy Camp. So I became Crash Happy. And then everyone got to know me as Crash. And then when I got back, it was
It just stuck.
It just stuck. It just stuck. And it's a pretty abrasive sounding name, right? And I can be an abrasive guy. It's not as, I'm not as, like a soft, I'm just myself and I'm pretty pure about it most of the time, most all the time.
Understood. As someone who can come across as abrasive myself, I understand and appreciate you for being abrasive as well.
So just accepting myself from my, pluses and minuses. And
Fair.
that name makes me realize that, yeah, you're your own guy. And, I can't be nobody ever likens me to anybody else. Like, you remind me of this guy. I might look like somebody, but when it comes to being around, it's just like, nah.
Right on. So a little bit of a hard shift. So tell me, how did it feel when you first started realizing that you were essentially creating a brand new market, a brand new vertical, a brand new product thing that didn't really exist before you? I mean, man skirts, losing the air quotes, have existed in one form or another. But the way you were doing it and your model was a breath of fresh air and something completely different that didn't really exist in that kind of form. How did it feel when you realized, like, oh shit, I'm actually creating a new market?
There wasn't a special feeling. I would expect that of me. That's what's in it for me, is
Right.
to do something that nobody's doing. I mean, that's the thrill of it, is pulling off something that shouldn't be done. It's like, no, that's just crazy. That's idiotic. No, that's just not going to ever work. That's what I want to hear. That's what I want to hear. And then all of a sudden I'm really interested because I want to challenge the norm. And the weird part about it is that when it was embraced, that's fabulous. But then when there was competition, and I was like, I felt mainstream again. So going to all these events I wasn't such, just more and more competitors and more people walking around, and in utility kilts, the less and less individualistic it became for me. So especially going to Highland gatherings where everybody's wearing it, and that to me in the back of my head somewhere is saying, oh, this is real conformity. So it goes pretty far with me. So, actually I'm more comfortable not wearing a Utilikit if I'm hanging out with other people that are. It's going to happen. I don't want to be, motorcycles. You ride a motorcycle?
No,
All
but
right.
I understand.
A lot of people do. And a lot of people love to be in a motorcycle club or a motorcycle gang or hang out with motorcycle people and go on rides with a lot of motorcycle dudes or chicks. And that's the last thing I want to do. I want to be out there on my own, alone, in my own zen. I'm not comfortable in a group of motorcyclists. It's the last place I want to be. And the motorcycling has been part of my personality, my shtick ever since, for 50 years I've been riding.
Yeah. It's the GDI, the goddamn independent kind of mindset. I 100% get. And I found it, like confusing and like a beautiful confusion when I used to, like in my youth, go to, punk shows and ska shows and oi shows. And, everyone is there trying to be as original as possible, wearing essentially the uniform of punk rock. You have to wear, zippers. You have to have X number of piercings. You have to have patches on your jacket and da, da, da. So it's it's funny that it's like, I'm a nonconformist who's conforming to the style of the genre. So I 100% where you're going with it.
That's a great analogy. I've used that one before. How punk rock are you if, somebody's telling you how to dress? Because punk rock genuinely is an F all to F everything. And then that's where you get some real neat creation.
Yeah. So now when you started going to the gatherings and you saw all these competitors, I won't use the term knockoff, but we all know it's kind of there. I'm curious about your psyche on it. Was that demoralizing? Was it annoying? Was it complimentary? How did you take it?
It was pretty emotional for me, I think. Offensive and complimentary, and it changed what was in it for me, and what is in it for me is the Utilikilt to me represents a way to gather people that you want to meet around you. So I thought, to me, that's what it means. It's this big, serious, life-fulfilling thing that draws people towards me, because people are allowed to talk to the person in the Utilikilt or the Scottish kilt. There's an invitation. Like, hey, you can talk to me. I'm open. Or I wouldn't be wearing this. I can afford the bandwidth to chat with you or anybody that wants to. And it was those that didn't embody the same spirit, and that were there just in talking in business terms. Our product, our branding, our ROI, and then this and that, and the advertising campaign, and our followers, and I can go right into the terrors of marketing. But you get clothing, it gets competitive, and then you hear people talking about it's a product, not a lifestyle. And I think that's what is attached to all of it to me, and it's still embodied in the Utilikilt, because we haven't ever used influencers. I mean, to me, that is such a nasty word. It's such a punk ass word. Influencers. I got to pay somebody money to walk around and act what? Like they're cool? Shit. It's embarrassing. I see big stars like like Michael Jordan, greatest basketball player ever, and he's got his big shoe line, and it's marketed to high heaven, and that is the way it works. They're making a movie about the shoe and Michael Jordan. I mean, that is great. I just don't see it. I don't want to be part of it.
Now,
subject?
I'm gonna
Listen.
I'm gonna push back on you a little bit. There's from someone who has collaborated with certain people, we did like Pipe Rally and things like that. There's influencers who naturally could come to your brand that aren't necessarily a paid thing. Like you did, like Richard Hatch from Survivor. He's an influencer. Now, he was running around naked most of the time, but he wore it on the show. So he in some way was an influencer, but just by nature of the fact that him being, in a spotlight, I know he was still a customer. I know he still bought it from you. In the same way that Piper Alley was a customer of ours, and we're just like, hey, you're an awesome person. You have a bit of a platform. We have a little bit of a platform. Let's collaborate and do stuff. Now, I get the bad taste in your mouth about I have to pay you to wear my thing. That's not cool. I don't want to do that.
Right. Yeah. And we've got enough allure that people, they'll wear it if they think it's good enough for them. And that's where all of our advertisement has come from. So it's genuine. They're not reciting any forced lines. Right. We've had a lot of breaks, Richard Hatch being one of them. And he, right when at the advent of him coming into the story, he's like, I'm going to be on this TV show and it's called Survival. And I was like, that's crazy. Because just this week we had that model coming out and we were calling it the Survivor. right?
Right.
That was the name of the TV show,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
We were
Yeah.
like, oh, this is great. You're going to get the first one. And he's got one of the first 10, okay? Richard Hatch. And we were going to call it The Survivor. And I'm like, what is this TV show going to be called? Survivor. Oh, what are we going to change the name to? Survival. The Survival. So we had to remarket. We changed the name just to accommodate that one thing. And it's an honor to have it more on that venue. That was really, really awesome. But people, we've had stars come to us and say, "Hey, I'll wear your product. You need to give me 10." And I'm like, thank you, but no, thank you.
Yeah.
Even if you just ask for one, we're not going to give it to you. You got to earn it, because you're not going to wear it right if you don't pay for it. You're not going to understand the value of it. Believe me, there's value in it once you get it on and you start walking around. But I'm not going to say, "Oh, you should do this." We've never done it.
Yeah, that's one of the interesting things that I find about you as a human in the limited interactions that we've had over the years is that you're like the anti-businessman businessman. You're the least likely person to start a business and succeed, but here you are, 25 years almost later, plugging along, doing a great job. So it's, I tip my businessman hat to you, so to speak.
Thank you.
So I know one of the things that is important to you and has always been important to you, and it's one of the things that you and I align very much on, is having things made in America. Tell me about why that's important to you and kind of how that became part of your company ethos.
Well, Made in America was where we started. We're from there, and we should be recycling any of our business to the local living economy. And here we are. It's difficult, and it's difficult to do here because it's not the norm. And the examples of our government leaders, our commerce leaders, are doing the opposite. Are doing the opposite of what we should be doing. We should be relying on ourselves. We should be giving any opportunities first here. And if we have too many that we can't get satiated, too many needs that won't be satiated here, then take it abroad as an overflow, but not as a primary way to save money, to make money. I think saving money, I'm all about. Making money, I think that the way people make money is by exploiting regions. And it's just not a healthy thing. It doesn't make sense. It's difficult. We have no leaders that are actually keeping it here and keeping it true. They're saying, made in America, and they've got investments and they're presidents of foreign companies and they do mergers, and it's just crazy what's going on. Tax breaks, everything. They will not support Made in America.
Now, do you think that has helped Utilikilts? Do you think it's hurt Utilikilts? Or do you not give a damn about the answer?
I give a damn about the answer. And it has done both. It's just a hairy question. Has it helped? Has it hurt? Both. It's a conundrum. You're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. Yeah. The reason that any American-made company that uses manufacturing in the United States is going to be limited to certain growth. Limited. It'll be smaller than what it would be if they were taking advantage of international production. So the priority set of these companies needs to change from bottom line to values driven, I think, right?
Yeah. And it's yes, and it's a much bigger problem insofar as you're limiting your own growth because your profit margins are going to be lower if you're trying to be competitive because you're paying American wages and American material and whatever else you're sourcing things from in America. You're going to pay a higher cost for that, and therefore your competitors are able to eke out huge margins and charge $150 for a kilt that costs them $30 versus you or I are going to charge $200 for a kilt that costs us $120, $130 to make. It's it's ridiculous because we're making lower margins, even though it's a much higher price. Therefore, we can't reinvest that to grow the company and do different things. So you're right. You're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. And there's also limitations on how fast you can grow kind of because of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought you were going to say, damn the question. Yeah, basically it's where I kind of come to it from is the mantra of, has it hurt us? Yes. Because, if I sold, Pakistani kilts that were, that I bought for $20, $30 and sell them for $100, like, like some companies do, then sure, I'd make huge profit margins. But I choose not to. We never really, as a brand, we've never really promoted the Made in America thing so much, even though we are. But at the same time, it's just what I want to be, and it's who I want to be, and it's who I want my company to be. And that's kind of where I thought you were going to go with it as well. It's kind of like nope, it's my thing. I'll do what I want with it.
It's that too. Of course.
So let's talk a little bit about speaking of business, let's talk a little bit about the challenges of running a business. Over you started in 99, I think you said. So over that 24 years that you've been in business, what have your biggest challenges been? What are some of the milestones that kind of stand out to you?
There was a 2007 collapse of the market. That was hard, where we had to lay off the majority of our factory. So that was real hard. The other one was the housing crisis that followed that. Knowing that things were tough coming out of that recession, and we couldn't really have that many employees, and we had to change the business model. And then COVID, all this standard things have affected us. COVID was pretty hard. It really made us rethink the business and the importance of a store and where we were headed, what we wanted to take with us.
What were some of the lessons that you learned from them going forward? So like when you had the layoffs in 2007, was it just a recalibration of your mindset of how big you wanted the company to be? Was it a recalibration of where you wanted to take the business? Was it a thinking about the competitors and price points? What was the recalibrations?
Production primarily. I liked our quality is off the charts, and so it's really hard to get an already working factory to do your stuff to spec. So we had absolute control with our own factory at 100%. But then, it takes a lot of management and compromise to outsource, even locally. Like we've been outsourcing locally to Seattle factories and some others in the state. We're going to continue that, but it's a whole different dedication. It's nice having your own people. You can spot a problem or a quality control issue immediately and deal with it immediately, rather than having to go through this communication tree, which delays everything. And then you've got your POs lined up, and you might have some factoring involved. And it's comparable to when people are working at home rather than working all together in one commercial workspace. You just have to readjust, recalibrate everything. Cash flow, a big deal. The idea that our storefront was antiquated with the homeless thing. Our neighborhood down in the Pioneer Square, we had this beautiful, beautiful store, huge. We had it stocked with kilts, and the homeless thing happened, and our neighborhood just went to hell real fast. So it was hard to go to work because you'd have a junkie in your doorway, or you have to clean the piss and the crap off the front of the sidewalk, right where things are. There'd be violence, and there'd be drugs, people just shooting up in your doorway. And then having their customers say, "Oh, it's kind of nasty to get here," and You're like, Jesus, I'm so sorry. We're looking for another place, a better place. And we did just ultimately close that location. It helped that COVID happened at the exact same time. And then we just said, well, let's just be appointment only in our own workshop and see how that goes until we refigure out what's going on with our storefront and how we want to work that. And we decided to just turn our workshop into the storefront, appointment only.
Right on. And have you found that that has helped control things? Have you found, a loss in virality or in like the lack of you're part of the community, but you're building your own community. So I don't know. Do you miss being downtown? Do you miss having the community of businesses around you, or you're not worried about it because your customers are your community?
We've been a destination location ever since our inception. And that is still the case. We're not peddling what the guy 2 blocks away is peddling or on the other side of town is peddling. So when we were downtown, there was always somebody that would just walk in and they'd say, what the hell is this? And we'd go through the spiel. Oh, these are American-made utility kilts for everyday wear. You don't have to be Scottish to wear them. They're washable. Have you ever worn cargo shorts? Well, this is really close. It's just more air conditioning. You go through your spiel of dealing with the utility kilts to somebody that's not aware of the concept. And it's a stray, somebody from the tourists or from out of town, generally nobody that lives in the area because they know where your store is. So that was good. And on a daily basis, we'd get 20 people, 30 people, 150 people that would accidentally just walk in the store and go, what are you guys selling? I saw the name and I saw these, in the window. So we didn't line them. That was good. But really, the market is so established and it's may not. Now, this is something we could talk about at depth. Is the market mainstream? Is the product mainstream enough? Can it go mainstream? Because when I at the inception of the Utilikilts and I realized, hey, this is the new way. I'm really comfortable wearing them every day. I want to wear them every day. I think that's a real viable solution for men who aren't pleased with the way pants and shorts fit. So I was like, it's ready to go mainstream. That was my conviction. I was like, yeah, that's where I'm headed. And you look at all the competitors up against Utilikilts, we're the ones that haven't niche marketed. Okay? We're general market. Men in skirts, if that offends you, you're not ready for it. We've pissed off everybody. The Utilikilts is pissed off. It's primarily in the beginning, the first people we pissed off, the Scottish. The Scottish were most offended. It wasn't people who are homophobics or racists or whatever you got out there. We pissed off the Scottish community and they're like, heresy, sacrilege. How much are those? That's how it went. It was really cool. And we embraced it with vigor, piss and vigor, I should say. And the attitude was necessary for moving in and borrowing the word and borrowing the idea and say, thank you very much, Scottish people, for having preserved this possibility because it's ready for a rework. And I'm that guy that's going to be the first one to try it.
Yeah, I think you were definitely the leading edge of that. I think to some degree now the world is a little bit more ready for it as a concept. I am not unfamiliar with pissing off Scots, so I'm with you there. We piss them off from the aspect of they don't like the fact that we're American doing a Scottish thing versus what you do, which is in their mind bastardizing a Scottish thing and making it solid with pockets. So we're pissing them off for different reasons, but we're both pissing them off. Some of them anyway. But I think the world is ready. It's probably more ready than it's been for a while for something different. The question that I would have is, will you be happy or will you be sad if the world embraces kilts or utility kilts as a mainstream article of clothing?
Oh, I'd be happy just to share it. Just to share it. Now, my personal tastes are, I've changed since I started this, and I don't need to declare myself as the individual so much. I've got children destroying my life right now, so to currently, that's changed my focus. Children are great. Being married is great, and having a family. That's really
Just
what
keep telling yourself that. Kids are great. Kids are great. I hate them. Kids are great. Kids are great.
So it's not this. I'm not fighting for my individuality like I once was. I'm pretty much really happy with the way things turned out at this point. And if it goes mainstream, which I'd love to share with the rest of the world, it's the majority of humanity or this country, the majority of the men in this country aren't aware that this is an option. It's still not that discovered. But listen to this idea as when it might be time. So we've been at it for 23, 24 years. And it's going to be a generational thing. We sold to men, okay? Men is who we sold to. Men are people who aren't forming themselves. They're not looking for mentors. They're not looking to follow anybody. Utilikilts is only sold to leaders who have the balls to wear it and appreciate what it offers, okay? So this has generally been men over 25 all the way up to old men. It's the same. It's got the same luster. It's got the same allure, okay? Kids forming themselves, they want to follow somebody. They want to mimic somebody. Their balls haven't dropped yet. They're trying to figure out who they are, who they want to become. But in the 24 or 23 years that we've been doing this, we have utility kilted for the sake of this conversation. We have kilted a whole generation plus, maybe a generation and a half, going on 2 generations. Now, these kids had mentors. They were their parents. These people were wearing kilts. Now, see what I mean? Mm-hmm. That is in their head already. They're not just this rogue group of individuals, the ones that I identified with. There's one in every crowd, And now it is becoming more and more embraced. And the longer and the harder that we keep doing it, and that it keeps growing somewhat, one day somebody's going to wear it, and it'll be a big deal. It'll be some star or somebody. It could be I used to tell our customers, like, keep watching Cops because we're going to go big. We're going to go big. When you see it on Cops, we've done it. Bad boy, what you going to do? It used to be a perk. I'd say, hey, wear your Utilikilt and get caught on Cops, and I'll hook you up for the rest of your life. That's great advertisement. Not really.
We'll end with this. What do you want your legacy to be in all of this? Whether it's the legacy of your company, whether it's the legacy of you as a man, whether it's the legacy of the industry that you kind of sparked, what do you want your legacy to be?
I would like to say that I would like that legacy to be having showcased our customers as leaders in the future, that people, having met our customers, wearing what we sell, have experienced another angle of joy or freedom that is admired and is acknowledgeable in the future for everybody to like, if the kilts go big, utility kilts go big, man skirts, however you want to call it, that our customers set that tone and what's in it for them and why we're headed that way. It's comfort, it's freedom, and it's expression, and feels good,
All right, Krash, I want to thank you very much for joining me today. It's been a great honor. I've known you for, long enough that I would consider ourselves, friends. So it's been awesome to be able to sit down and kind of put some of these stories together on wax to kind of preserve it for the future. And I wish you all the success in the world, my man.
I look forward to seeing what you're going to do as well.
Very good.
Cheers, brother.
Slanjava. Thanks for watching my talk with Krash. Are Utilikilts something you are into, or are you looking for something a little bit more traditional? Let me know in the comments. If you want to see other interviews that we've done, go check out that playlist over there. Until next time, boys and girls, Slanjava.